Good evening and welcome to the second of the Fall 2020 Prout Chapel BFA Capstone Readings. Our first reader tonight is Madeline Sugg, whose themes reside in the dark, dark woods of the 21st century. Madeline's characters are born there in a thick stew of impulses, both civil and sinister. Love and trust get easily tangled in the obscured briar patches of unexpected human behavior. At what point are we supposed to see the light and run home? That is the point of Madeline's literature. Our second reader is the poet Keaghan O'Brien, whose steady, intelligent voice belies a kingdom of unpredictable sorrow. Many worlds held together by the poet's consistent presence nevertheless break off at times and leave us stranded. Strand is his thesis title. In all of its incarnations, strand, piece of beach, piece of hair, and the act of abandoning. But most of all, what strikes me is the tightrope act of this poet, whose words keep the poems going. And by going, I mean not falling back into the deep silence from which these astonishing poems seem to have been born. And our last reader tonight is Anna Fargo, whose tendencies toward extreme empathy are explored in both her fiction and poetry. Empathy is not wired into us, she suggests. We must earn it, and once we have it, what keeps us from drowning in it? Like passionate love, empathy is risky, even dangerous. And yet, without it, what is actually there? This thing that we work so hard for that will most likely hurt us is always worth it. Or is it? And like this, Anna Fargo keeps us entranced by her circling. Please join me tonight in pre-applauding Madeline, Keegan, and Anna.
Hi everyone, my name is Madeline Sugg, and tonight I'm going to be reading to you one of my short stories called You Know I Love You, Right? This short story I have been writing ever since my first workshop at BGSU, so that's a little over 2 years ago, and ever since then I've been going back to it and going back to it and going back to it, and now we are here, and I am reading it to you tonight. So I'm very excited to not only share it with you, but read it to you right now. So let's just go right into it. You know I love you, right? I lied straight through my teeth as I spoke on the phone, easing my guilt through distraction as I looked out the back window at the two Labradors chasing each other through the backyard. This late in March and the branches are still bare. I thought this to myself as I again lied and reassured the boy on the phone. No, everything is fine here. You guys have nothing to worry about. Are you sure? I could come back sooner. Dylan's voice seemed distracted as it buzzed over the phone like he was in a field of a million cicadas. It definitely was a lot warmer where he was, and I wonder what he was really thinking about as he stood somewhere in Jacksonville, Florida, fresh out of his father's funeral. No, I'm fine. Just a long day at school. Too much talk about college and adult stuff. You be with your family. I'll see you on Sunday, okay? None of that was technically a lie. Okay, if you say so. I heard his stress turn into a relief through a sigh. It will all be over soon. I didn't think you could just have a parent die one day and the next day be over it, no matter their circumstances. But still I assured him, you're right, it will be. Hey, I'll see you Sunday night, all right? Yeah, you will. I heard his smile over the phone and then a pause. You know I love you, right? I didn't skip a beat as I opened the door to let the dogs in. Yeah, I love you too, Dill. I'll talk to you tomorrow, all right? And with that, we hung up. Dylan had been in my life for as long as I could remember. Out of pure luck, we had most of the same teachers in grade school and middle school. Now we were in high school and we were still glued to the hip. It was always platonic, until it wasn't. It was about 6 months ago when Dylan first kissed me, 3 months since we first had sex. And I really did love him, but we were both going through a lot, and I was happy to have the weekend alone, just me and Dylan's family's 2 Labrador retrievers. Dylan's house was big, at least 5 times the size of mine. Granted, I lived in the only trailer park in Waverly Prairie. My mom was happy she had the place to herself that weekend, too. I could tell by the 24 packs she brought home from the store that day instead of bread like I asked. But I wasn't upset. Dylan's family had 3 loaves. I made 2 sandwiches and sat down on the leather sofa, flipping through the TV channels before I fell asleep. When I woke up, the sun was almost completely gone. I had dreamt that I got a full ride to some unnamed college, and all the students there had lobster claws for hands and were abnormally tall. I wouldn't mind going to that school if it meant I could actually go to college, but that would involve having money, or a family with money, or a family member with good credit for loans or brilliant grades, and I had none of that. Still sleepy, I went upstairs to go to bed. Standing on the landing, I tried to remember if Dylan's room was on the right or the left wing. Even growing up with Dylan, I had only been to his house a handful of times. He blamed it on his mom's OCD. Do you know how many places she's puked in the house? And I'm not counting the times it was done in the trash can or toilet. But no, I'm grounded. She's all set to continue puking and drinking because the housekeeper always takes care of it the next morning while mom sleeps off the hangover. I remember this conversation vividly as I walked down the hallway. It was in the 8th grade and Dylan had spilled acrylic paint all over the white carpet in his room. Why parents would give a pubescent boy a white carpeted bedroom was a mystery to me, but it did get him grounded for 3 weeks. When we were younger, we would always play at my house because of that. Even before the acrylic paint disaster of 2012, Dylan had always made it clear that he enjoyed the atmosphere at my house better. You know, my mom thinks you turned out gay because your mom raised you all by herself. Dylan spoke candidly on my sofa in our cramped living room one late afternoon, as after-school cartoons played on the TV. I remember choking on my glass of orange juice, trying to suppress my laughter until I fully swallowed. Oh yeah, I smirked. I thought it was because she forced me to watch Will and Grace with her every Thursday night in elementary school. Dylan chuckled, his gray eyes reflecting a rainbow of colors coming from the TV. 100% it's because of that. Honestly, you probably would be even more gay if your bastard dad would have stuck around. A genuine smile grew on my face. Oh, absolutely. I had always loved the way we had similar humor when it came to coping about the hard stuff. Even when it was about coming out the spring before high school in a small Midwestern town, and even a year later when it was about Dylan's younger sister Phoebe dying of an accident and drowning right in their backyard. I had only been in his room once, and as I remember, I automatically shake my head, as if I would somehow be able to physically shake out the memory of our naked bodies from my head. The noises of slight gasps and feeble moans replayed crystal clear in my mind as I entered through his bedroom door. And as I lay down in his bed and closed my eyes, I could still see the bruises. I could still hear the moans. I woke up sometime in the middle of the night, but not in the comfort of quilted cotton. Instead, I was lying on damp, matted ground below me. I pushed my body up from the ground and realized where I was. Dylan's backyard, specifically where their acre-long pond used to be. Despite being basically banned from playing inside Dylan's home, I had spent many suffocating summers outside in and around that large body of water. The same body of water that Phoebe Antis drowned in at 12 years old, a week before her brother's 15th birthday. Shortly after the incident, Dylan's mom and dad drained and filled the pond before the first frost of winter. I suppose they thought the soil-filled land would cover and heal the traumatic events of that day, but the uneven and sporadic patches of grass that forced their way through this tainted ground had somehow only highlighted it. However, as I fully stood, I saw that it had reappeared, its disfigured body of water looming in the shadows in front of me, and then came the noise. It sounded like a scratch, but louder, more panicked. As I walked around toward the shore with an eerie feeling of calmness, it grew louder, and the water got more visible. There, a few feet out from the shore, was a canoe upside down, bobbing out from the surface. "Hello?" I called out immediately. The scratching stopped. I opened my mouth to call it again, but then came from under the canoe a piercing scream. "Dylan, no! Let me out!" It was a young girl's voice. Dylan's dead sister's voice. "Phoebe?" Before the panicked voice could answer me from underneath the canoe, another one answered from behind me. But this voice was the exact opposite of panic. In fact, it almost seemed smug. "Well, are you going to help her?" I whipped around to the voice behind me, and there stood 14-year-old Dylan in boyish-looking swim trunks, holding what looked like the oar to the canoe and soaked in water like he had just taken a swim in the pond. And then I woke up. Gasping for air as I sprung up from Dylan's bed. The room felt 20 degrees cooler despite the warm sweat trickling down my forehead, and despite me knowing it had been a dream, I still felt a sore pain in my throat, like I had been the one underwater for far too long. When I woke up the next morning, the sun had yet to fully rise, and still my phone was ringing with Dylan's name bolded on the screen. "Hello?" My voice shifted like sandpaper with its first words of the day. "Hey, Clay." "Dylan, is something wrong?" I sat up in bed, trying to suppress a cough in my throat. "Did you just wake up? You sound funny." He sounded annoyed, even though he was the one who called, but it didn't bother me this morning. I was just happy to hear his voice. "Oh, no, I actually just let the dogs out, and I'm getting their breakfast ready now." I stretched my legs out of the bed and slowly started walking towards the kitchen where the dogs actually were. "Oh, okay, good. Well, I'm calling because my mom woke me up with all her crying. She's in the room next door, but it went right through the walls." He paused to sigh. "Talk me back to sleep? I really need the shut-eye." "I'm sorry, Dill. How is she doing? Did you check on her? Is she okay? Or as okay as she can be?" I guess she's okay. Last time I heard it was hiccups and moans. I'll check on her later, after I sleep." He paused, waiting for a response, but I was lost within deep thought. "Clay, you still there?" Yeah, sorry," I responded, coming back from my thoughts. "You know, Dill, both of you are going through this, experiencing this. I mean, there's no right way to feel or act, is what I'm trying to say." My heart was pounding like I had just ran one of those triathlons Dylan's dad used to do all the time. I automatically pushed the thought of Dylan's other dead family member out of my mind. Instead, I pictured Dylan's foggy blue eyes staring out of the window in whatever room he was in. I closed my eyes and imagined the warmth I would feel if I was there to squeeze his hand now. I wanted to be there for him, so he could be there for his mom. Dylan responded with a phrase he rarely said. "You're right," and then said goodbye. He would see me tomorrow, and then I was alone again. I let the action of cleaning and changing the sweat-crusted bedsheets from last night consume my thoughts as I tried distracting myself from the million thoughts whirling in my brain. That dream had felt so real. I instinctively shook my head as if to shake out the fear and guilt the dream had made me feel as I opened Dylan's closet and reached for his spare sheets. I noticed the dull gold object sitting on top of the folded sheets after I had already pulled them from their spot on the top shelf, causing the small object to fall on the floor. Looking down, I saw it was a key. A very familiar-looking key. Due to the OCD and raging substance abuse problem Dylan's mom had, even in the winter, we were forced to play outside when I came over to his house. Sometimes even his dad would come out with us and watch us as we tried to ice skate on the frozen pond or carve a hole to ice fish. One winter, sometime in our preteen years, he had helped us build a treehouse in the small wooden area of trees that aligned the outskirts of their backyard. Even as we got older, even after Phoebe died and Dylan's dad committed suicide, we still found ourselves back in the small woods, in the makeshift hut that we had helped build and declared ourselves the kings of. Even after everything, we still felt safe there. I stood up and grabbed my coat, heading towards the back door and out into the wet grass of morning. Both dogs came to me. Wagging their tails almost encouraged me to entertain this wild goose chase. "I'll be back, all right, guys?" The dogs followed me to the forest edge and watched me step over a few fallen branches as I found the tiny trail that headed to the clearing. March had made the path uneven, some areas now muddy from the winter's thaw, and some still hard and rough beneath my sneakers. The buds on the trees had simply made their reappearance for the season, not deciding to fully bloom and grow yet. This allowed me to see all the backyard despite being encapsulated within the small woods. This allowed me to see all the memories I was trying to repress. With the treehouse as our fortress, deeming ourselves the kings, we had decided we needed something to protect. And what better to protect than a secret? Too many secrets. A chill rolled down my back, and while I blamed it on the March breeze, I knew better. Other than the many secrets that Dylan and I seemingly had collected over the years, we had also created something more physical, more childish, more innocent to protect. A treasure chest. The chest was a large old jewelry box of Dylan's mom's. Together, as young kids, we painted it and dug a hole in the base of the tree. X marks the spot. I looked around the old tree fortress for any sort of sign or familiarity on where exactly we had buried the chest. We hadn't dug it up in what seemed like decades, and yet I still knew exactly what the key to open the chest looked like. I started to roll my eyes at my erratic behavior until I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. Fresh dirt, the color of chocolate syrup. I walked closer and kicked the dirt with my foot. Feeling nothing, I bent down and slowly started to grab the dirt in my hands. A few scoops in, and I saw a corner of a piece of wood sticking out. Grabbing it, shaking the dirt off, I confirmed it was the treasure chest. An odd feeling seeped into my chest as I stuck the key into the box and turned. I was sitting on the muddy soil, too focused on the contents to care. Inside the box was a picture of Dylan and his dad. I remember taking that picture the night of Dylan's cousin's wedding, the night we had sex for the first time. I blinked and shook the thought out of my head as I squinted closer at the picture, realizing the only one smiling in it was Dylan's dad. Guilt seeped through my chest again as I remember how nice Dylan's dad had been to me and how I'd always envied the way he seemed to care so much about Dylan and his mom. That had changed only a few days after the photo had been taken, after Dylan told me everything, after he told me the truth. I set the photos aside and examined the rest of the contents. A thick piece of rope frayed at both ends and a Ziploc bag full of fur. No, not fur. Hair. Human hair. I let out a small gasp, breaking the loud silence and the slight hope that maybe this was all a dream. I leaned against the tree some more and slowly slid down to sit. Maybe if I was just some random trespasser who had found the box, maybe then I wouldn't have been as alarmed or as freaked out as I was in that moment. But I was terrified. A few moments seemed to pass until I looked back at the bag and box laying side by side, a few feet in front of me. I grabbed the bag again and looked closer at the pieces of hair. They were black with pieces of thin gray stripes, his father's exact color. I automatically replayed a noise in my head I promised I would never replay again. I shut my eyes, trying to control my breathing, control my thoughts, but all I could see when I closed my eyes was a smiling face. Dylan's bloody, smiling face. Opening my eyes, the image still held my brain captive as I looked down at the bottom of the chest, 2 small purple barrettes. My breath stopped in my throat as I remembered these barrettes so well. Phoebe's barrettes. I don't know how long I sat there, how long my breath shook, and my whole body felt numb. The only thing that didn't sit still was my mind. What did this mean? Nothing good. Nothing good can be found buried in a locked box with pieces of a dead sister and a dead father inside. All these thoughts raced through my mind as I tried to hopelessly reach for some sort of reasoning on why someone would have these items, this trophy box, without coming to some malicious, sinister conclusion. But all I could do as I sat there that morning was keep going back to one conclusion, the one I knew was real. Somehow I managed to make it back to the house. I didn't know how long I had been outside, but when I finally picked up my phone, it read 12:07. I automatically set it back down, not knowing what to do. On the coffee table in front of me sat the box with the picture, the hair, and the rope, all things that pointed to one verdict. I picked up the phone again and dialed his number. "Hey, Clay. The memorial just ended. What's up?" He didn't skip a beat. "I found it, Dylan. I found the treasure chest." There was a silence on the other line until he spoke again. "I'm taking the next flight back." I didn't start crying until that evening when I saw Dylan walk through the front door. I wasn't crying from being upset, even though I let Dylan come towards me and wrap his arms around me. No, I was crying from complete and total anger. What the fuck were you thinking? What the fuck, Dylan? I tried to look up at his face, but all he did was tighten his hug and remain silent. I yanked away from his hold then. Why? Why the fucking hell? I got louder, angrier with every syllable, every word. Why did you fucking do that? Dylan finally spoke as he took a step back from me, his voice 1,000 times calmer than mine. Clay, please calm down. Calm down? How the hell am I supposed to calm down? I took a step towards him. You hit a damn box of evidence. Dylan finally began to reflect the anger that extruded from my voice. So what? So what if I fucking did? No one is going to find it. We are the only two people who know about that damn treasure box. The last part hurt like a stab to the stomach. So you wanted me to find it? No. Dylan took a step towards me, calmly reaching for my hands. But I didn't care if you were to find it. I pulled my hands away from his. That's sick, Dill. It's basically a trophy for killing your dad. For us. Dylan raised his voice slightly, interrupting me. We killed my dad. I felt sick to my stomach as I stumbled back to collapse on the couch, my face automatically going to my hands. It took every particle of me not to run out the door and hop into my car, to call the cops and explain what had happened, what we did. I care about you so much, Dylan slowly made his way to the couch and sat beside me. And you know I would never do anything to hurt you, right? I felt his hand on top of my shoulders as he squeezed it. Looking over to meet his gaze, I saw how his blue eyes almost seemed gray as they got foggier and foggier. Phoebe. I didn't know how to word the question I wanted to ask, the answer I needed to know. This had all started with the young girl's death. I want to ask you to help if I could do it myself. I can't let him get away with what he did, knowing that the cops can't do anything now. It's a closed case. Those words and the story he told me a few months prior echoed through my head as I looked at him sitting next to me. I knew I didn't have to finish the sentence for him to understand what I needed to know. Do you really think I would lie to you? His voice stayed steady, but I felt the tension in the room rise, as if someone had put the plug on the drain and turned on the bathtub. Do you really think I would have asked of you what I did if it wasn't true? That I really wanted to hold him still and watch him struggle while you put the noose around his neck? He paused and then sighed, returning his fingers back to my shoulder. And your fingerprints are all over that rope. Your hands were on his hair. He stopped again and squeezed my shoulder, but instead of comforting, it felt menacing. I didn't respond. Instead, we sat in silence, soaked in the tub of the mess we made. We sat there until I felt his hand on mine. He squeezed it, and then let go, waiting for me to look at him. You know I love you, right? Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to my BFA thesis reading. Feels really weird that this is my BFA thesis reading, but it is, so that's that, and that's really cool. So thank you to all the faculty members that have gotten me to where I am, and all my peers that have supported me along the way. Feels good. I wish I was here, or I wish I was at Prout rather, to do it in person and feed off, the energy of the room. But given the circumstances, this is, I guess, the best alternative. And I'm just excited to be reading to people. My thesis is called Strand, and really I want it to be a meditation on what it is to feel, or to feel stranded, and really what that means. So I'll get into that more and more as the reading goes on. But the first poem that I have to read is an ode, which I'm not really, I don't write odes very often, but this is more to me an ode to the parts of my childhood that I have forgotten and that have left me for one reason or another that I wish that I had back. And really, there are elements of this throughout my work, but yeah. So this is called Ode to a Friend's House. Ode to a Friend's House. A warm crowd of couches covered in blankets and regret. The walls, tobacco thick with orange and all manner of collected fire. Every room is a bar where the air sings like cancer or growing up. We never want to grow up. We spend hours in the pool while the whole world dries, laugh like no one can hear us. Once I took shots with a friend at 3 p.m. and we kissed behind the couches. I like to think that moment is still there. Under blankets, amidst the glow of monitors, are warm bodies encased in ice and time. Every memory is underwater. We're forgetting how to swim. Somewhere in Atlantis is our childhood. Somewhere in this shipwreck, a treasure buried under blankets of glowing current. The world looks so chromatic and broken, and right where we left it. And right where we left it, we left it. So, a lot of my work in the thesis has to do with loss and how that has affected me personally throughout my entire life. I've dealt with a lot of mental illness, and that stemmed a lot from trauma that happened back in my youth. This next poem kind of goes into that, and this is called Notes on Diving. Stand at the edge of an abyss and stay there. Don't think of the possible depths, the furious tide. Remember how your mother bathed you in the sink. Want for nothing but a cradle, a warm body to hold your head to. Stop thinking of the dishes that will steep beside you. Hold your arms above your head and never put them down. Shame is just another word, and there's no language underwater. Let your body speak for you. One hand eclipsing the other. Let yourself hover and never fold your fingers. Nothing holds worth in the water. Place one foot in front of the other and pray to a world where you could sit comfortably in a sink, where there was no dirt but the dishes, no God but the faucet, and dive. When it hits you, the water isn't warm and the sea tastes nothing of soap. You will want to leave again. Know first that no other world within reach will take you. No arms stretched open that hold so gently still. Open your eyes. Stare into the abyss until it swallows you and deny it. Breathe out. Bubbles, less soapy, are just as brief. Let yourself drown for a moment. Remember a world of oxygen and mothers. Remember how to cover yourself in mud, how the wet earth covered your skin like a blanket, and how quickly you'd run inside once the rain stopped. This next poem is called In Which the World Offers Another Page the Poet Cannot Fill. Somewhere it's raining in a city already drowning. Nightclub neons coil with shade. There's always a story. Always families in the windows and blood in the rebar. Against the red glow of traffic, a woman gives birth in the backseat, and everybody is late to something. Among the impossible rise and fall of the skyline, streetlights bloom, a jasper sky, a tiger's eye vermilion. In a world of people, there are always shadows, always noise. Even the percussive ring of gunshot falls into place with the cadence of cars and street and rain. The trick, always, is to find the space in the mess and make a home of it. But in this moment, a boy who was once a man is dead. shot by men on motorcycles who must have sounded like hurricane. His name was Romeo, and maybe it still is, but regardless, he is dead, and his body gathers no crowd. Once, he was born in a clean room and under a blazing light, and once, long before the street buried him in its teeth, I bet he knew a world without shadows. But for now, lit as if by a spotlight, Romeo's body is face down, bloodied and puddled in pavement. He is suddenly center stage, dying in the rain, alone as under a burning lens, a final cold. The silent officers, the busy spectators, each arrive in silence and with fallible knowledge. They don't know his name. They don't know his eye color. They don't know what music he listened to in traffic. But each hold umbrellas and stand anywhere that is mostly dry. So a lot of my work can be described as more depressing, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand that. Something that I have been trying to do a lot more recently is write about more positive things that have happened in my life. And yeah, I'm not so good at writing, for lack of a better term, pastoral pieces. But this next piece is a poem I wrote about a time with my friends that I wanted to remember, and I wanted to talk about nature and see where it went. So this is called From Every Seed and Ocean and Rain a Garden. I learned a new word today. Burls, a friend tells me as we walk the Sandusky Pier, are the names given to the knots found in the sides of trees. At first, I thought them ugly, but they've grown on me. This sycamore stands lone in the neighborhood park, old as the stone on the shore, and watches the water pastoral. Tired friends in time. I repeat it over again. Burls. I like how it curls in my mouth. It's like a tree tumor, we guess. Really, they are the result of stress, the tree's way of covering a wound or infection. The bark folds over itself like taffy, and to me they seem like waves, clung and calcified in time. A rolling scab, permanent. I wonder what it takes to make a tree envy a lake. Erie is dead and dying. It covers itself with warm towels of algae, sweats out sewage and trout. The single sycamore rests in the park, flanked by wooden houses. Where did we learn to break the water and fatten ourselves with marrow? Time, the original healer, the natural reaper, has never known the nodding stress or feared the dry, hidden places. A lake, displaced, would move, survive, and return. A tree, sunk, would drown. I too am guilty of burls. So, my first introduction to writing poetry that was a real inspiration to me was slam poetry. And a lot of that came from like the button poetry videos that would be put out all the time on YouTube and still are. And so I very early on I wanted to emulate that, and to success and both failure. I feel like that's definitely shown in my work, but especially in my time that I've been here, I've made a point to solidify what my voice is and be distinctly different from just a slam poet or just a poet to be read like on the page. But now I feel like I am close to where I want to be with being both, but also something unique at the same time. Like I could go one way or the other, and this poem is one that it was the first poem I wrote when I was at BG, and it's based on a real experience, and I've shared it many a time. And I'll just let it speak for itself. It's called After Being Stranded on the Side of I-75 with a Smoking Van. I suppose I had to learn again what it is to be stranded, though this way was less than subtle. I'm on my way to see my grandfather for the first time in 5 years, and there's a sickness. His throat is closing, and his words get shorter by the day. Soon, he'll not be able to eat. He'll not be able to speak, and what kind of life is that? Buckled and secretly burning while everyone around you screams. The mirror on the wall is the playground bully or ex-wife or irony playing its cruel tricks again. Strand, verb, used with object, to drive or leave a ground or a shore. I'm staring at a 16-year-old minivan surrounded by grass that hasn't stopped growing in years, like flowers by a casket. This is not like in the movies. There's no rain cloud, thunder, or piano key melodies, only citrus-colored clouds and passing time. This van I remember growing up in is going up in smoke and dying in my hands. I think how appropriate it is that this part of my childhood goes to. Strand, verb, used without object, to be halted or struck by a difficult situation. My father died almost 10 years ago now, and what an anniversary this has already been. This van is 16 years old and finally dying next to healthy engines and long car rides and roadkill and open windows and tall grass, and none of this was expected. Strand, verb, usually used in the passive, to bring into or leave in a helpless position. When I finally see him, his bones are sharp, his skin fading and weathered. I watch masculinity unhook itself from his throat, claw out his eyes, and swallow his tongue. I'm quiet, afraid maybe that the silence is hereditary, that all men are just boys who have forgotten the warmth of their father's voice, but remembered the ash. I think of the nightmares where my father is there and I say nothing. I think of the nights I said nothing and woke up burning. We have all woken up burning, silent and choking where we once slept. My grandfather is quiet now, sleeping soundly as if there's anything to hide under a blanket of cancer and skin and dirt. Strand, noun, the land bordering the sea, a lake or a river, shore, beach. Hazel eyes, my one best feature, are hereditary. In the sun, they sing every color naturally. Blazing rings of brown and green and blue. Some days I'm proud of them. Others, they're polluted ponds of gasoline and smoke like an engine fire. We are all cursed heirlooms. We are born fluent in our family's blood language, but we choose when to speak. And we start to sing when it feels like we're burning. We are all 16 and searching for a quiet place to die in a blaze of reeds in silence somewhere on the side of a highway. The grass is still growing. This next poem is called Where Once Was Ocean is Still Ocean, but Less. Time is a fragile promise. A hanging glass frozen mid-shatter in the air, an empty room half full of light and crimson space. In a home of moments, the air is stained and thick with veins. The moving boxes rest uncluttered in the hall. Nothing is empty. Nowhere is full. If the past, present, and future all happen at once, we live as wet slugs and earthworms wriggling on the soaking pavement. The puddles that called us out of the soil, Sometimes we are the pavement. Sometimes, often, we are crushed underfoot. Never the grass. It is easier to forget that I loved you once. Easier to leave a past unchecked, a mess untouched. Why unpack a box that is no longer mine? Why spoil that precious tape? When I choose to remember you, I am picking blood off a glass floor. I am lapping at the wine, a stain of scent. After every storm, earthworms scatter on the sidewalk. Today, I found one crawling towards the street. I cupped its squirming body loose in my palms and returned him to the dirt. This is called Semblance. I am haunting our beaten past. Abandoned house, rasping as a body, slim as a husk, I sleep between walls and spit into rusted pipes. I am pumping blood back into our long, drained past. Without power, insulation, grayed and withered, has lost the taste of you. Coffee beans and honey leaf left out to last the year. The foundation, a gnashing mess of marked nails, my nest of chipped teeth and almost bones. Lonely feasts for another empty. The difference between the food and the table, the bedsheet and the doormat, is how loud the lacking is. I have made so much space for someone who isn't here that now every room is unfillable. So, as we come to the last couple poems, a lot of my work has to do with, um, dealing with grief and the loss of my father at a young age, but also the loss of childhood and love, and how it feels like, most of my teenage years, it's been a lot of making up for lost time, it feels like. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people who've experienced this thing can relate to, that type of trauma. Or at least I want it to be something that people can relate to. So in the next couple poems, it's looking back more, not tragically, but bittersweetly, which isn't a word, on that loss of love and of just my past. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you for coming. This poem is called When Finally the Night Came. When finally the night came, we lay together in the guest bedroom of my best friend's house. After hours of fumbling through drunken sex and surrender, and maybe we talked for hours, naked and quiet in our shame. Maybe we thought we loved each other, thought the world to be so small, like we were blood on the end of a pin, like we were proof to the world that it is still living, but more likely we just lay there, together only by circumstance, cubs left hungry in winter, knowing nothing but our skin. And this last poem is called The Getting Over It Part. The getting over it part. You have stopped trying to find a world that looks like your past and settle it. Instead, you sleep on a bed of letter paper and dream of each word you wrote to them and wonder where it went. When you'd give love a paper body and send it out to play. The getting over it part. Rehearse it all again, the way your breath slow dances with your tongue. This is how you remind yourself that love tastes like caramel and drying ink, that a printer can make any words warm enough to press to your face. You fall asleep standing up. Thank you.
Hi everybody. Thank you for coming to Prout virtually. I gotta say, I've been preparing the past 3 years to do this live, and now it's weird to do it over video. I can't say I'm too upset because I have awful stage fright. However, I'm probably gonna make some mistakes in this video, so like, if I do, just like ignore them. Thank you. I'm coming to you with damp hair from my parents' house for Thanksgiving break. I hope everybody had a safe and nice holiday. Also, if my glasses reflect weirdly, I'm very sorry. They're like blue light filter glasses and I like need them to read. So I'm sorry if that's distracting. Um, so I guess we'll go ahead and kind of talk about my thesis a little bit. So I consider myself a fiction writer. I do poetry for class and for fun. However, like I said, I do like poetry. So my thesis is a mixture of poetry and fiction pieces. I liked some of my poems beforehand, but like what really made me want to add poems to my thesis is actually I've been taking the upper class poetry workshops with Sharona, and she has just helped me so much with revising old poems, writing new ones. Like I actually feel like I've learned a lot, and I've tried a lot of things that are really new. Um, and yeah, I'm just really excited to add some of those things to my thesis. I came to the realization recently that I write a lot about love and relationships, and that kind of the things that go along with that. So that's kind of the theme of my thesis. My title of my thesis is Empathy. I actually have a piece that I'll be reading for you later titled Empathy, and that's where I got the title for it because I think that goes a lot with love. And as like a person, those two things, love and empathy, are very important to me and things that I try to, just do and use in the world. And so I kind of, my theme is already there. It was set for me. So that's kind of where I'm going with this thesis. I'm hoping that you can see that theme and just different aspects that have to go with that, because there's a lot of ways that you can go with that. So I'm not going to talk for too much longer. Sorry about that. I'm going to start by reading some poems, and then I'm going to switch to reading my title piece, Empathy, like I said earlier. So the first poem that I'm going to read is titled Sugar. I wrote this second semester, freshman year, in poetry, or like English 2050, intro to poetry or whatever, craft of poetry. Oh my gosh, it's been a while. It's gone through so many revisions. There are so many different versions of this poem that I have on my computer. However, this is the most recent and the version that I have chose to keep in my thesis. So I'll go ahead and read that for you. Sugar. Keep sugaring your tea and you'll get cavities, my boyfriend warns. My mouth shuts because I fear his seeing the rot that fills my smile. His eyes darken, treacherous as cavities, as he tells me everything will be okay. The reason for my tears, seemingly sweet, causes so much pain, like a cavity rotting away. Short and sweet. I write a lot of short poems, as you'll probably be able to see. So my next poem that I'm going to read is called Familial Ties. This is actually my most recent poem, or one of my most recent poems. I wrote it this semester for Sharona's class. I just really liked this poem a lot, and so I really wanted to add it to my thesis. I think it kind of fits in there with the theme. So here's Familial Ties. The house is burning from top to bottom. Flames engulf my childhood bedroom. Pictures burn until there's nothing left. All those moments now only exist in my brain. My desk is black and damaged. Stuffed animals and books are turned to ash. Childhood drawings that my mom held so dear are gone. Now she has nothing left of the child whom she said she loved so much. Every trace of me burns, every possession, every memory, every thought, every hello and goodbye. It's like I never existed, and someday I won't. As they meet at the mailbox, the established meeting place, my family doesn't have to wonder what happened. They know I'm the one who lit the match. So yeah, bit of a serious one there. Moving right along, we have another poem from freshman year. Again, this has had so many revisions. This is the current version of it and the version that's in my thesis. So yeah, this is called Love Cannot Leave. While reaching for your hand, I notice it's a cold purplish blue. I rub it quickly between both of mine. When your arm is heavy around me, this dark alleyway feels like home. A piece of hair falls in front of your face. I grab it and twirl it around my finger, just like how you have me wrapped around yours. I crawl in front of you and grab your face to look into your eyes, but you don't see me. Sighing, I put my hand against your chest where your heart should beat. Although you are dead, my dear, our love is not. Yeah, a little dark, a little spooky. Spooky season is over, but we can still have spooky poetry, I guess. All right, so this next poem that I'm gonna read is called On the Anniversary of His Death. This is actually about my hamster dying. 4 years ago or so, I gave him to my best friend because I was moving and I couldn't keep him anymore. And her dog loved this hamster, and one day the hamster got out of his ball and the dog wanted to play, and the poor hamster was so high strung that I think he just had a heart attack as soon as he saw the dog, which is very sad. My friend called me crying. Yeah, so I decided to write a poem about it because why not? This is actually a pantoum, which I don't have the definition of a pantoum for you right now, but it is a form that is very heavy in repetition, so you will see that as I start to read. So this is called On the Anniversary of His Death. When I was 17, my hamster died. I had placed him in my best friend's care. When she told me, we both cried. Her dog had given him quite a scare. I had placed him in my best friend's care. All her pet wanted to do was play, but her dog had given him quite a scare, since the hamster thought that he was prey. All her pet wanted to do was play. Quickly to the ground he dropped, since the hamster thought that he was prey. He was so scared that his heart stopped. Quickly to the ground he dropped. Once she told me, we both cried. He was so scared that his heart stopped. When I was 17, my hamster died. Again, short and sweet. Maybe another little depressing one. So this next one I also wrote last semester. So did the last one I also wrote last semester. But this one just recently had a revision done to it as of last week. So yeah, here's a version that's in my thesis. It's titled Home is Where. A bed full of blankets and comfortable pillows and sheets smelling of my perfume. You'll never feel lonely. A bookshelf full of favorite works to sharpen your mind. And in the corner, a piano. You can write songs for me. Paints, you can create whatever your heart desires. My heart desires you. I want you to make this place your own. I want you to feel at home. But you need more room to be truly content, so we renovate, prop my valves open like doors, build a closet in my aorta. I would do anything to make you happy. For now, you are satisfied and tired of darkness. Your mind is set on a skylight. You are happy, but my heart is bursting at the seams and you become angry. You tear apart the place that I have made for you. Books are ripped from their jackets, piano strings snipped, angry brush strokes cover the walls in every imaginable color. When you run out of things to destroy, you start on me, slashing away before making your exit. Sorry if I mess up. I'm trying to do this in one take, so unless it's a really bad mess up, this is what we got right now. So bear with me. All right. So next poem I also wrote last semester. Can't have a thesis with a theme of love without having a sappy love poem, right? So this one is actually written about my boyfriend of a little over 2 years. It's actually inspired by a piece that he wrote for me. He's not a creative writing major, he just wrote a piece. And so it's kind of like a little collaboration, and it's really sappy, and yeah, Gotta have one of those. So this one's called, oh, and it's also a villanelle, which is kind of fun. I like villanelles. So this is called I See in Color Now. Before we met, life was awash in gray. I felt like a caged animal ready to bite. Would I ever feel the light of day? With nowhere to go, all I did was pray. My whole life felt like one long night. When we met, life was awash in gray. It was love at first sight, they say. You, with your eyes so bright, dazzled me like the first light of day. When I cry, you wipe all my tears away. You are a colorful rainbow that fills my sight. My life begins to be more than just gray. The hottest pinks mark where we lay, flashing red in the midst of a fight. I feel the warmth from the light of day. Your smile, bright yellow like a sun ray. I feel deep purples when you hold me tight. My life is full of color with no more gray. When I'm with you, I feel the light of day. Again, Sappy love poem, shout out to Nolan. Love you. Okay, so those are all the poems that I have for you. I am now going to read you, like I said, Empathy, which is my title piece. I wrote this junior year, and I've revised it once or twice since then. It's definitely a work in progress. Well, I consider it like as a finished piece. However, there's a lot more that I feel like I could and might do with it. Um, I guess I shouldn't put, yeah, it's not a work in progress. I don't know why I said that. But there's a lot more I could do with it, and a lot more that I probably will because, it's always good to constantly revise, right? So, without further ado, here's Empathy. I am an emotion whore. Give me your emotions. I want to share in your feelings. I crave your sadness, your joy, stress, anger, confusion, and your fear. It's love that makes me this way. I love deeply, strongly, until it overflows, overwhelms, and I feel overexposed. Draw me close, whisper in my ear, confess to me your secrets, your sins. Your voice is trembling just like your hands, your eyes are glazed, tears are threatening to spill, but you continue to share your emotion with me. Tell me about the child you gave up. Tell me how guilty you feel because you didn't want anything to do with it, how it haunts you daily. You were young, too young to be able to take care of a whole nother life. You can't take a breath without hearing a baby crying, the same crying you heard when you left it on that doorstep in the fall. You admit that as you walked away, you felt lighter, suddenly free. You felt the cool air on your skin, admired the beauty of the changing leaves. Yet, as the baby's cries became fainter and fainter, you felt heavier and heavier, realizing what you had done. Say that I'm the only one that you can be honest with. You are a compulsive liar. Those around you are captivated by your charm, your charisma, but none of them actually know who you are. You say that you work in finance, but you actually work at a call center. The pictures of the expensive house you share on Facebook are posted while you sit in your actual studio apartment in the bad part of town. It's not even lies to compensate for your lack of compensation. You tell your friends that you had tacos for dinner last night when you actually had burgers. You say you watched a TV show when you actually watched a movie. You tell everyone that your girlfriend is on a business trip, but you've always been single because you can't stop the lies. You feel out of control. We sit together feeling hopeless. Helpless. Confide in me about your affair and the child that your husband doesn't know is really someone else's. You had trouble conceiving. The two of you were desperate for a child of your own. You don't know how it got to this point. You were coworkers and hung out as friends. But one night you both had too many drinks and you haven't been able to stop since. When you found out you were pregnant, the first thing you did was throw up. This time it wasn't because of the morning sickness, but because of the fear that coursed through your body and the baby growing inside of you. When the baby was born, your husband was so happy. He didn't even notice that the baby looked nothing like him. Every day when you see the two of them together, you feel a stab of guilt in your heart because you know he loves you so much that he would never doubt you. You realize that you can never come clean, so you meet up with your coworker, the father of your child, several times a week to drink away your guilt. Share what it felt like when you were 6 years old and hid in your closet when your father came home. The darkness was comforting. It camouflaged you. You felt a thud and heard your bedroom door fly open, the doorknob making contact with the wall, leaving a hole in the drywall. You moved around as quietly as you could, covering yourself with the clothes hanging down around you. You could hear him muttering under his breath, and you can tell he's looking for you under your bed. That was your hiding spot until he found you last week. Light suddenly penetrates your vision. You can't go on. It's too painful. We hold each other tightly, and I remind you that you're safe in my arms. Confide in me, lean in close and speak in a low tone. Your eyes scan the room frantically, and you tell me about the man who has been on every street corner, every bus, and every building that you've been in over the past 3 months. Every time you turn around, he's there. You tell me you haven't been sleeping. I notice the dark circles under your eyes, the coffee in your hand. There's this distinct tremble to you. It almost feels natural because this is your new normal. The police can't help, and you don't have enough evidence. You're afraid that they think you're crazy. You're starting to think you're crazy. When you live your life in this kind of constant fear, you don't know what's real anymore. I feel your paranoia. I look up and see a man in the doorway, but when I blink, he disappears. Instead of telling you, I just hold your hand tighter. Come to me and tell me that you have no one else to go to. When I urge you to go on, you hesitate, taking too many sips of water to delay the inevitable. You confess that you think your fiancé is cheating on you. You've been checking her phone, going through her messages, and tracking her location when she's away. When you lay next to her at night, you stay awake, listening to her snore as your mind races with the possibility of leaving her. When she asks if you're okay, you tell her that you're fine. Your guard is up, and you wonder if she knows that you're on to her. I listen to your fears, and you listen to my advice. When you've almost decided that you would talk to her and leave all of this behind, we hear the sound of a notification coming from your phone. It's a message from her. She wants to talk. You cry on my shoulder because we both know by the end of the night you won't have a fiance anymore. Tell me how it feels to hide who you really are. Your parents are extremely religious and judgmental about everything that doesn't align with their values. You don't understand how they can quote the verse, love thy neighbor as thyself, and yet be so homophobic. Doesn't Jesus say to love everyone? That's a question you're too afraid to ask for fear that they might think you're questioning the faith. I hold you close to me as your whole body shakes with violent sobs. You tell me about the girl at school that you've been in love with for 2 years. You're too afraid to tell her or do anything about it. You feel like it's not fair to her since you're too afraid to come out. I hold on to your feelings of hopelessness for as long as I can to ease your burden, but eventually you take them back, carrying them on your shoulder as you walk out the door. Tell me what happens when you're alone in your room at night. I want to know about the restless nights. Describe the burning feeling in your eyes because they've been open for so long. When you're alone with your thoughts, they begin to take shape. The faces of loved ones transform before your very eyes. They tell you of their disappointment in you and how you'll never be what you truly want to be. You feel hurt, betrayed. Your throat feels tight. Your burning eyes are soothed by your tears. You sob where no one can hear you, alone in your room. I ask if I can sleep over from now on so that I can share your emotion to ease the burden and you won't have to be alone. Tell me how you can't control your emotions. Though a load of chaos is dumped on me, I welcome it. You explain that you're constantly at war with your feelings. The smallest things make you upset and you fly into a rage. I feel the heat of your anger as you speak. I urge you to let everything spill out. I understand how it feels to have so many questions and I'm craving yours. I shiver when you tell me about the times you sit on your hard floor, hopelessly sad yet unable to cry. Though I still feel your sadness, I get relief when you talk about the times that you can't help but cry your eyes out until your sobs are replaced with hiccups. You tell me about the moments of happiness where you feel giddy, excited, and everything in between. Happiness is not an emotion I feel often, and it feels like a warm summer breeze on my skin. We go through your emotions like a to-do list, checking them off as we go. When we've checked every last one, you stand up. You feel lighter, like you're floating on air. As you float away, I am left behind. I'm grounded in reality. The emotions weigh me down. Draw me close, whisper in my ear, confess to me your hopes, your dreams. I can hear the anticipation, the joy, and the longing in your voice. You try not to get your hopes up, but I can tell that you are. I share your excitement and I beg you to tell me more. Tell me about your dream job. You've wanted to help others your whole life, so you decided to become a teacher. Whenever you tell people around you that being a teacher is your dream job, they laugh at you and tell you won't make any money. It's never been about the money for you. You want to make a difference and impact. When you were a child, no one was there to encourage you. You decided your own path and have worked hard every day to reach your goals. You're discouraged. It's been harder than you thought to follow your dream. I kiss your hand gently and tell you that everything will be okay. I remind you of your passion, determination, and drive. I feel that passion through you, and though I love to share in your emotion, this is a time where you need some of it back. As I share your emotion with you, you get your confidence back until you don't need me anymore. I watch you leave without even a look in my direction. Tell me you love me. I want to feel it. I'm tired of craving other people's emotions without any feeling of my own. I'm starting to feel like a priest in a confessional. My pillow is damp with tears, the weight of all my emotion. Feel my longing. Notice the way I look at you. When you are around, my attention is only on you. To you, I am a human diary, a free therapist, but I am so much more than that. I know you more intimately than any other person. I know your hopes, your fears, your wants, and your needs. Hold me close. Confess your love for me. Wipe the tears running down my cheeks and rub them into your own skin so that we can share my sadness. So yeah, that's empathy. That's probably not what you were probably expecting. I probably should have introduced it better for a fiction piece. I realized junior year that a lot of my voice comes from more narrative pieces instead of story-based, like storyline-based, plot-based pieces. So I really like this kind of thing. There's probably more I could do with it to make it a little more obvious with some of the stuff, but I kind of, in my head, it's this person who wants all these emotions from different people, almost kind of like like a prostitute, but like for emotions. I know that sounds so funny, but they just want these emotions, and all these people come to this person to kind of share in that. Um, I don't know. It just like started as an idea with that first line, and I just kind of took it from there, and I really like it. Um, so yeah, I guess I'm just like trying to explain all of my pieces, and I don't need to do that. But I'm probably gonna hate this when I watch this live on Thursday. But you gotta do what you gotta do. I just want to say thank you to everybody in the creative writing department, professors, faculty, students. You all have shaped my time at BGSU, and I'm so thankful for all of you and for making this like the best 3.5 years of my life. Um, so yeah, thank you for listening. It was kind of a mess, but I'm not gonna redo it. So yeah, I hope that you all have a good rest of your night. Bye.